Talk. It's time to rock. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the channel. It's my pleasure to introduce to you here on the 5150 show. On the top rung with me, we've got Jimmy V, and down there holding us up is Johnny C. Good to see you, Jimmy. Good to see you, Johnny.
Hey, guys.
What's up, fellas?
Happy to be here, man. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a cough, so bear with me.
No problem.
Still.
So long as you've got a drink there to help with the cough.
I do, man. I do. Libations, whatever you call it. Yeah. Conscious just drinking water.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Cinco de
he's
Mayo.
healthy.
It's
He's a
Cinco
healthy
de
man
Mayo
now.
here in the United States. Here, you see all these crazy people. It's raining out here. It's 50 degrees here Fahrenheit, obviously, and it's just a nasty night. But there's people outside where we just drove by. There's like cars everywhere, outside tents with porta potties for outdoor potties. Yeah, people for Cinco de Mayo. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So what's that?
It's like a Mexican.
I gotta just rant a little. I hate this holiday. Cinco de Mayo, I think it's like Mexican Independence Day. Is that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, I think it is.
I heard somewhere that even like Mexico doesn't celebrate it.
But you guys do in the States.
Yeah,
That land of the home and the free.
Any excuse to get drunk.
It's got to be some kind of like. It's got to be some kind of like made up holiday that Corona beer did or something, man.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's a holiday today, Cinco de Mayo. Like, you know.
Hey, don't you talk about beers because, you know, we might start talking about that other holiday. No.
Nope,
You want to
talk about that.
hear something crazy about that today? One of my friends, his brother-in-law is a big executive at Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
And he said for the first time he's been there, he told my friend in like 25 or 30 years he's worked there. He's like in an executive position, I guess. He said they shut down the line. They sent people home. He goes, and I guess this is a fallout of all that stuff that went on. So that's kind of it's crazy. He says never seen that happen before.
Oh wow, man! That's
wow.
crazy.
Yeah. So I know a few people got canned for that whole debacle, I guess, you know?
No kidding.
Yeah. So I don't know. Something
$7 billion off the share market price.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I don't know.
Yeah, you guys got to remember this. So I'm obviously halfway around the world, so I'm not privy to how big these brewery companies are. You know, we've got a bit of an idea here because we've got a couple here. But when a friend sent me a link and said, you know, that they lost $4 or $3 million after a couple of days of the campaign exploding, that's when I thought, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of crazy because Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser are so associated with America, the United States of America. They're not even American. You know what I mean? They're owned by InBev, which is a European company, I think, out of Austria or Germany or something. InBev, it's a corporation. So it's not, you know, it's just typical, right? Something that Americana at its best. It's not even American anymore. So
yeah.
Anyway, we're not talking politics, ladies and gentlemen. We're just talking about a couple of facts. So we always like to talk about the cultural differences between me here in New Zealand and obviously Johnny and Jim being based in the States. And this is one of those great examples. So, Jimmy, I suppose, you know, humans being humans are always going to find an excuse to have a piss up and a party, aren't they? You know, so if it's going to be Mexican Independence Day.
Got to be something, right?
why not?
I
Right?
don't think that. I mean, outside of like we have Memorial Day at the end of the month, which is a big holiday here. But outside of that, I think they were just looking for a holiday in May.
You're right. We really didn't have one, man. We have Mother's Day here.
Yeah,
That's it, right?
You
You can't get really drunk on Mother's Day, I guess, right?
yeah, Memorial.
No, you're not.
Day.
No. Father's Day, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh,
Andrew, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
sure.
I have to make a statement here to Christopher Live Sawa in the chat. Can I just say, as a Detroit Tigers fan, he says, How about those Mets? That hurts, buddy. You got me.
Oh,
They beat up on my New York Mets 3 games in a row this week.
I know.
But the Mets just won tonight, so all right, so things are looking a little bit better for me here. Unlike the New York Yankees, who are like 8.5 games behind the first place team now. So
Yeah, I'm a Mets man too. Yeah.
there you go. Oh,
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh,
I love
nice.
it. That's it.
Mets, Jets. When it comes to
you go.
NFL and Boston Bruins for hockey guys.
I thought you were a Giants fan. No.
Giants. Sorry, Giants.
You know the
Yeah,
Jets?
Yeah,
fan?
yeah.
Aaron Rodgers?
Giants. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Brain fade. You got
Gotta
me.
correct
And
that. Gotta correct that. Yes.
but I'm also going to keep an eye out on the Houston. What's the Houston NFL team that got that number 1 draft pick?
Texans?
Texans.
Be-
Houston,
because they
yeah.
interviewed that number 1 draft pick guy.
Yeah.
He, and I liked what that guy said. That guy stood up and he said, "I got here through hard work, through my family."
Yeah, thanks
You
to
know,
mom and dad. Yeah.
Yeah, mum and and thank God, and I'm going, and if I can do it, anybody can. Yeah, mate, great.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
He was pretty impressive.
So we even follow that here. We even follow that here, guys.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today? Oh, Van Halen.
Oh yeah.
Jimmy. Last week, John and I popped on. We spent an hour and a bit talking about Van Halen. We flicked through some pics of Eddie's car. Great show, John. Great show. Got some views on that. Be keen to catch up with you and continue the conversation about the news that came out 2 weeks ago. Michael Anthony saying that he's involved in, the remastering, repackaging, re-editing, whatever you want to call it, of the Van Halen catalogue. Got some thoughts on that, brother, you want to share with us?
I do. First, I love the fact that Mikey's involved in anything with that, group.
Yeah, kept
I
in the
was
loop.
listening to this. There's a broadcaster out here, Eddie Trunk, and Mikey was on Eddie Trunk's show, and he was talking about how he talks to Alex. Every once in a while they talk, and they don't really talk about music or anything. They just talk about basically like just friend stuff, the family. And I dig that, man. I'm that makes me happy that those guys are talking, because like they don't have to talk about a tribute show or anything for me. You know what I mean? I love the fact that they're just talking, and like only those 4 guys lived that dream. So they've got like this behind the scenes stuff that nobody else has except for the other 3 guys. So I love that. I like hearing that this stuff's this remastered stuff is coming out. Andrew and I were talking off camera, and I don't know, like I'm not too excited about this whole remastering thing. I mean, it just brings up the levels equally. It's not going to sound any different. It, like Conk says, like it might be like if you have it on a shuffle, like those songs might be the equal volume as opposed to coming in and out because of the mastering. So they might be an equal volume, but you're not getting anything new, right? And like we were saying, I would, and that's fine too. Like if they were going to give me some remastered stuff with some new tracks that hadn't been released yet, oh yeah, I'd be into that. But like just giving me a remastered package of the old stuff, although I was we were talking with Andrew, and I love the idea of there's a great gatefold. I saw the whole unboxing thing that Sammy did. I'm like, wow, great pictures. There were some pictures there that I'd never seen, in that gatefold and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's some cool stuff. So I love the packaging. I just, I'm just not too excited about remastering. Now, remixing, Yeah, sign me up for that. You know what I mean? So, but I do love the idea that Mikey is talking with Alex, whether it's about cars or their roofs or how to make a ham sandwich. Doesn't matter to me, as long as like there's some kind of like love and camaraderie there. It was just
Can I just interrupt? Can I just interrupt you, Jimmy? I think that's a valid point, and that was something that I completely, and I don't think John and I spoke about last week. We did not acknowledge the obvious fact that Mikey and Alex are now in a conversation. So thank you for bringing that perspective into the conversation. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. I even I even saw some a while back. There was some interviews with David Lee Roth, some podcast or what, I can't remember what I was listening to, but there's some podcasts there where Dave was referring to like talking to Alex and them laughing like pirates, whatever that means, and I love that. I want those guys to be friendly. At least like you do not need to give me a tribute tour, okay? But I would love to hear that you guys are friends and maybe you go to each other's barbecues and stuff.
Sure.
That's all I really need, you know?
But
So
did he actually say that Alex spoke to Mike? Did he say that, or was it like Irving Azov? Because I know Mike said something like,
no, but Mike said that he calls Alex and they talk. They don't
Yeah.
really talk about, Van Halen. They
right.
talk about, yeah.
He said that a few times. And I know Sammy, he won't speak to Alex, won't speak to Sammy. So I mean,
No,
I like
that,
yeah, I like the fact that that Mike and Alex do speak. I'm good. That's cool. I'm good with that. But I I'm sure Azov is involved in that too. The conversations telling them what they can say and what they can't say,
yeah, maybe, probably.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not, just to wrap it up, I can't get too excited about remasters if they're not going to give us anything new. I kind of already have that. I mean, I've bought it on, through the years, I've bought every Van Halen album on cassette, CD, you know what I mean? MP3 or whatever you want to call it, like, downloads. So, the packaging looks cool though. If you're gonna, maybe somebody can send me pictures of the packaging. I'd like to check that out.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Jimmy, and I think I just want to share a little bit of my experience between listening to remastered and remixed packages in the past. Like we were talking about in the green room, the Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs album that came out 20 years ago, they remastered that and they moved the bass guitar from one of the left hands or the right hands a little bit more into the center. And that caused a little bit of upset for people that were used to the original version of the album. And then a couple of years ago, the company came out and completely remixed the whole album. And it just shocked a lot of people because Clapton's guitars were pushed right forward. Now, for a guitar player, you probably think that's quite a good thing, because now you can hear the guitar in a definition that you probably couldn't have heard of in the past. But you got Bobby Whitlock on his channel coming out saying this defeats the whole purpose of what Derek and the Dominoes was about. It wasn't about Eric Clapton and a backing band. It was about a complete whole band, from that experience. But at the end of the day, Jimmy and John, we can always argue about what version's better. At the end of the day, we've got all the versions available. So just go and listen to your favorite one, John.
Mm-hmm. As long as we're talking about it, it's good, right? As long as we're arguing and talking about it, it's good, right?
The other thing is that let's say they do remix it. You've been listening to the normal mix for 30 years.
Yes.
So although it'd be cool to have a new mix, like I was telling you about that Dio song that was remixed that I stumbled across And so I knew it was different right away because of the mix. But you're used to hearing this stuff, like, let's say Mine All Mine. You're used to hearing that the way it is. So it'd be cool, but I think, me personally, I'd revert, kind of like what you just said, revert to the original version, because that's what you know. And I heard that, like, with the Beatles stuff too. Like, people, were interested in what was going on there with all those releases, but they know, like, let's say they know the mono version. They're used to the mono version instead of the stereo.
Well, the Beatles kind of made it okay, and they opened the door for all this extra stuff when Giles Martin, or I guess what's his name, Giles, the son of
Yep.
Yep, what's his name? When he started actually remixing things, then that's new territory, because a lot of people can, it's like a whole cans of worms, these things that people are messing with. It's just like, like we were talking about last week, it's like the Mona Lisa. Do you go back in and do you fix, her eyelash? You know what I mean? It's just like, it is what it is. And an album's done, it's done. It's like it's a piece of art. You don't mess with a piece of art, but the fact that we can mess with that art, you know what I mean? And and I think the fact that the Beatles it's been done with the Beatles stuff now, it kind of opened the door for other people, and people are a little more comfortable. But a lot of people don't like messing with art. First of all, a lot of real true audiophiles, probably like Alan Garber in the chat. Alan probably doesn't really like remastering, because a lot of people feel, and I would think Don Landy would be one of those type of people that feels like that remastering, it actually ruins, it basically blows up the volume. It just makes it, I'm sure Alan can elaborate on that in the chat, what, the negatives are of remastering. You lose a lot of the subtleties and things like that. When they remaster, it's like full blown in your face, but the good thing is people can go back and listen to the original versions if they like that better. But I like the fact that, when I listen to the Sammy era stuff, if any of it is on the Greatest Hits album, I listen to that version of it, because it is louder, in your face, as opposed to going back to their, the original albums. So, but everybody's got definite feelings about that. But I listen, we're all talking about it, and the more the better, the more options we have, I guess.
Gosh, sorry, mate. John, I'm a fan of what Giles has done with the Beatles stuff, and I'll tell you why. In particular, the drumming tone that comes through, and Paul McCartney's bass lines. What he's done with Abbey Road. And we kind of realised that Paul McCartney was getting a really, really groovy bass line coming through anyway before he remastered and remixed. But I have to tell you, from sonically, when you're listening to your cans, it's just freaking awesome what he's done.
Yeah, I kind of think it's cool that Gilles Martin, that he kind of broke down that wall a little bit for everybody, because Alan says in the chat, remastering is if it's done properly. It's remixing that is almost always a terrible idea. I get that. I think that affects the actual art more than remastering, because when you're remixing, you're actually really changing something. But listen, man, OU812 needs some more bass. I don't know. And maybe in mastering they can fatten it up somehow a little bit. The frequencies, maybe they're I think that they have to address that somehow in when they're re-EQing it or something like that. But I mean, I don't know. That's my thought on that. That's the only one I would really mess with at all, believe it or not. The other ones are I don't really have a problem with the way they sound. Just that one. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they will. Sorry, my dog's barking. If you hear that,
that's okay. We love dogs.
Maybe they can keep up those lower bass end frequencies in in the remaster or something like that. Hopefully, we'll see. I guess. I think everybody kind of universally feels it. Jerry Leica in the chat. OU812 needs work.
I've got a question.
Jerry Leica's in the chat.
Yeah.
Hold on. I've got a question I want to ask you guys in relation to OU812, and we were touching upon this subject briefly in the green room too. So, John and Jimmy, do you think, and John, you were talking a little bit about it by saying, space, the environment in the studio was constricting perhaps what they could do. What about the rush to get something out? Do you think that was one of the reasons why it probably doesn't sound sonically as good as the other albums?
I think that OU812 definitely was the impetus for them to blow out the back wall and add the drum room. I think that, yeah, I really think that was what they finally said, because that was really the first album with a complete acoustic drum set that they did there in the studio. And it didn't turn out great. And, Don Landy, we know he's like a genius engineer, but, listen, yeah, that place had limitations. It didn't have real high ceilings. They only had that one main room where they put the drums, and they had to put, Eddie's 412 cabinet in a closet in the kitchen area or wherever. And Mike recorded direct with the bass, and it just, for whatever reason, the drums are the biggest problem with that album, the sound, and other than the bass, other than the mix of the bass. But they just don't. The drums just don't sound great on there. But they listen because of that. The next two albums sounded really great. The drums, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and Balance. So, because of that, I think so. And OU812 is the last Van Halen album in Alan's world. We all know that. After that, he will not recognize anything. But I think he's crazy because I thought For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was like a huge breath of fresh air. That's might be my favorite Sammy album, to be honest with you, that era. I love 5150, but I think that and 5150 are pretty right there with me. I think those are the two greatest ones. And I just think that album just sounded big and, and nice, So even a lot of people love Balance. Balance does sound sonically great, but I don't know. The vibe on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, I think the songs, maybe the way they did it, because they recorded one song at a time instead of like most bands, they'll record the basic tracks and then just randomly overdub every day. They're doing a different part for a different song. They did one song at a time on that album, and they finished each song completely finished and mixed, I think. And then they moved on to another song, which is like kind of unheard of, but maybe that has something to do with why that album is so great, because it was very focused. They were very focused on one song at a time. They weren't, okay, I'm going to overdub the solo for this song today, and tomorrow I'm going to do the solo for this. It wasn't anything like that. It was one song at a time from start to finish and mixed. So I think that's, I think that may show up in there. And Andy Johns, listen, that guy had an incredible track record. I know he had, a bad drinking problem. He's kind of turned into Ed's drinking buddy, and I don't think Sam got along with him too well after he erased one of the completed vocal tracks, apparently. So, and that's why another reason why Ted Templeman was brought in, I guess, because he worked pretty much with Sammy. But anyway, it's Alan, you makes a great point there. He can't stand a different kind of truth, just his preference. I'll agree with you. I think I had such high hopes for that album because John Shanks and what's his name? Ross Hogarth, who's from Pleasantville, Jimmy, where we play your band that night where we were. That's where he was from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Ross Hogarth is from there. So, yeah. So with the track record that John Shanks and Ross Hogarth have, I expected a phenomenal sounding album, and A Different Kind of Truth is just, I just think it's a terrible sounding album. I hate Eddie's guitar tone.
It's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really was disappointing that the sound on that album. So I would actually say that I dislike that album more than I dislike the sound on OU812. I'll put up with Mike's no bass on OU812. I think it still sounds better than A Different Kind of Truth.
Yep.
That's me though.
Yep. I've got another question that I want to ask you guys too, and it's in relation to what John was just saying, Jimmy, about balance and carnal knowledge, and hearing later. I don't know about you guys, and if you guys have already mentioned it in past shows, forgive me for not remembering it, But I didn't know here in New Zealand for years later that there were personal issues with the band when they were recording Balance. I did, I wasn't aware of that. And I got to tell you, over the years of me hearing and reading about that, it's kind of affected my way of listening to that album. So I agree with John. I think Carnal Knowledge is the one where they're all buzzing, they're all friends, they're all sharing, the musical experience together. They're not turning up in separate buses and, walking off the stage independently. So from that perspective, that's my favorite album, Jimmy.
I remember when Balance was coming out around Christmas time. There was this, I used to get, Guitar World or whatever, and around Christmas time, there was a big ad in Guitar World, and it had like the cover, the baby, the Siamese baby, whatever you want to call it. And it was like, new Van Halen, blah blah blah. I was like, oh my god, yes, right. And then, like, whenever it was released, like months later, when was that released? 95?
January. Yep.
Yeah. So, I was at my job, and I think back then they released albums on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so there was a Tower Records, down the street from my office. So I go down there, get Balance. I'm like, yes. All right. So I'm listening, I put it in my car. I'm listening to Seven Seal. All right. Not bad. No, it's not bad. Not bad. Then I kind of get to like Can't Stop Loving You or whatever. I'm like, what's this? Okay. I'm like, oh, okay. Look, even Van Halen's gonna have a clunker. Okay. And then I get to like the track where Ed's dropping shit on piano wire.
I have to agree.
What is this? And then I get to
an
actual drum solo on an album.
Not even 20 seconds of that. There was like a minute and a half of that crap too, which drove me nuts.
Yeah. And then there's a drum solo. And then there's like Baluchatherium, which I actually like, but it's just like the two brothers, really. And like, I swear to God, right, that I listened to it in one take, and I'm like, these guys hate each other. These guys are either running out of ideas or they hate each other.
Yeah.
Because it's just filler. I do not like Balance. If you know me, you know that I don't like Balance.
You hate
Balance. There is one song on Balance that is Van Halen worthy, and that's Aftershock. Oh my God, how much I love Aftershock. That is a Van Halen song. Seven Seal.
Yeah, I like Seven
Seal. Not bad. Okay. Even Amsterdam, like the riff is cool. Okay, I'm not gonna, but like, Wham Bam, Amsterdam. Come on. You know what I mean? But I swear, I'm sitting there, and it, like in my head, right? I have this thing where it's like Eddie and Alex are talking, right? They're about to, do Balance, and they're like, "Man, I fucking hate Hagar. Me too. Al, how are we gonna get rid of that dude? I don't know." He's like, "Al, I got an idea. I'm gonna put a song on there from like '86 of me over at whatever that guy's name, Heimlich." Yeah. Remember that? Remember when I was drunk and I was dropping shit on piano wire? We're gonna put that on there. We are? Yeah. And then Al, how about this? It hasn't really been done, before, except for one or two times. We got to fill up some space. These songs suck. How about doing a drum solo? Okay. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's
100%.
I should stop. I have a lot to say about Balance, but I'm just not a fan. But
I completely disagree with Jimmy, folks.
I knew something was going on. Like there was I'm like, this is filler. There was never ever any filler on Van Halen albums.
There's
right?
another. there's another album worth of, because Balance was going to be 2 albums, so there's another album worth of filler there, Jimmy.
No, like the other stuff that there was some kind of B-side I heard years ago. It was good, but like it just seemed like Al, we only have 3 good songs in this album. What the fuck are we gonna do?
Which is weird because on Foreign Lawful Carnal Knowledge, when they started recording, the next day they were going to record, they go, Ed, what do you got? He goes, I don't have anything. He goes, give me tonight and I'll see what tomorrow I'll have something, and it was Judgment Day was the next day. And that's set off the thing, but he had nothing to start that album. And look how prolific they were on that album. I mean, you could tell. Alan says they weren't getting along on that album too. Maybe they weren't, but it was nothing. I don't think there was any like outward, friction between Sammy and Eddie and stuff like that. They seem to be working pretty well. I mean, to me, that album was like, I think they were stoked at how great the drums sounded and Eddie's new amp. I think he was in love with that tone. And I think that they had a good time recording that too. You know what I mean? For all those people that say, Michael Anthony doesn't play on the albums. Anytime they had a real producer, in my mind, Mike was playing on the album. They still tracked live. You know what I mean? That was a big thing with them. They wanted to track live for the vibe. And, so I believe that was all tracked live in there too. So, I mean, I just think that album's got a great vibe, to it. Back to Balance though. I mean, even in songs like Can't Stop Loving You, I find value in certain things like that because I love that piezo transducer where he split the,
that is cool, yeah.
that acoustic and electric sound at the same time. I thought that was incredible sounding, and I loved the little solo part and the little break after that. I really like that in that song. I think that's classic, like an Eddie classic type of little solo, and that break after that I think is great. Like you said, Jimmy, Amsterdam, the riff is great. The lyrics are stupid, but I think that's great. And Aftershock, like you said, it's awesome. But I agree with you when it got to the second side there, and it was like you said, not that I don't like Baluchitherium or anything like that. I did like them, and I was like, it's kind of cool to have a full band instrumental, which we never really had for them before, right? Other than Intruder, I guess, really, right? I'm trying to think what else, right? I think that was it. But I thought that was kind of cool. But at the same time, it did kind of set a little alarm off in my head saying, wow, are these guys out of gas or what? You know what I mean? So, but, and Seventh Seal, I think is just a great, it's a completely different look at Van Halen with a big epic production, which they never really had. Everything was pretty sparse always with them. And I got to give Bruce Fairbairn credit with that. I had spoke to Mike Fraser, who was the mixer on Balance. And I may have mentioned to you before, but he put it in my head because I was talking about that particular thing where after the solo and the monks are going chanting again, and then you hear Alex hitting the floor tom, and it sounds like thunder, boom. And he said that's Bruce Fairbairn right there. He goes, "Janie's Got a Gun" by Aerosmith. Janie's got a gun, boom. That. He goes, that's his input into that kind of thing. And it's like after he said that, now every time I listen to that, I always think, I was like, wow, that's true. That's an excellent point. So I give him credit for that. But that big epic production on that song is awesome. So I love that song too. But even if there's only 3 or 4 real good songs on it, at least they're real good songs. You know what I mean? They're not, but I agree with you. Feeling never did anything for me. I never really liked that one at all.
I mean, it's all right. I mean, I don't know. I just
every time my wife hears "Not Enough," the piano at the very beginning, she sings that Disney movie Beauty and the Beast. She also goes Beauty and the Beast. Every time I go, stop it. I go,
no. Yeah, I don't even, I forget that those songs are even on there. I was just never, and I don't know. I'm gonna get burned for saying this, but a lot of people are chasing this balanced tone. That is not the definitive Eddie sound, man. Fair warning is a definitive Eddie sound.
Yeah. I also
I've even got the cassette tapes, bros.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I think that there's more than one Brown sound. That's how I look at it. I mean, Eddie hated the Van Halen 1 sound. I guess he always tell people he didn't like it. It's not my favorite. My favorite is 1984. To me, that's the Brown sound. But Fair Warning is it's a Brown sound. It's a little different. It's a little more gainy kind of sounding on there. So I could see like people love that and say that's the definitive sound. 84 wasn't as gainy. I like that. It was a little cleaner, but it like it seemed like he had to really work it with those hands, to make those notes like squeal out of there on that one. And so I like that. But I agree with you. I think balance is a little bit too much with the harmonizer on there. I mean, even the live stuff when you hear it, it was just like overly done. 5150 was overly done with the harmonizer. I guess it was the 949 Eventide he was using there, but it was different kind of. It was a different kind of detuned sound than the H3000 that he had on Balance. But I did like For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. That sound.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was going to say. If you're chasing that kind of sound,
that's the one. Not Balance. That's the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's Saldano.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's like everybody says the balance tone. I'd rather the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tone is better than the balance tone, if you ask my opinion on that. But nobody is, so.
Nobody is. Yep.
But it is, it is cool that there's a little bit of a Brown sound for everybody, you know what I mean? Depending on what you like. And, listen, Eddie evolved, right? From the first album to the last. And, to me, he peaked in 92, 93, not even in Balance. I think I don't like it as much. So I feel like, and then he went backwards. He went on Van Halen 3. It was very lo-fi to me. Yep. The sounding it wasn't like, I call it lo-fi, the sound, compared to what he had a couple years earlier. And then at the last album, I really believe that Eddie's hearing, his ears, he must have lost a lot of high end in his hearing. And when they voiced those amplifiers, the 5153s, there's so much high end on those. And I think, and he lived on that red channel on that 5153. Dave Friedman has said it. And even basically, I think he even said, like, unfortunately, he lived on that red channel was the one. And it's just, I think that's a horrible tone. That last album, it was just terrible. I thought the tone. So, if I can achieve that tone easily at home, then it's a terrible tone. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't have to work on it. You just turn that thing on and just like crank up the gain on it. And it's like, okay, there it is, so.
Yeah. Well, that's what I noticed, I went and, in 2015, I was right in front of Eddie in Hartford. And I remember listening, because I'm pretty much hearing the cabs really, because they're right in front of me, right? And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, this is super distorted. Not like not like in a bad way, but like it was just yeah. That's me in '98. Yeah,
there he is, right there.
Yeah, that's me in 1998. But I remember thinking like that is just really too much of a heavy sound for Ed, like too gainy, I should say, right? And it was good because like at that point, all I could hear everybody else, but like Ed's stacks are like right in front of me, right? And so that was cool. But like I remember thinking that I remember two things. Like Ed took a lot of liberties on the solos, which was fine, and just like that just like that, like too like really gainy sound coming off the stage, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It's just not what I was expecting, from like, Ed of like, I mean, if you watch some videos of Ed playing in 1982, especially when it was in South America, like those Caracas, Venezuela shows and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His amp is so clean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even, it's like almost clean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because of the power difference.
I don't know if that amp was dying. I think that somebody said, Alan, it might have been you that said during 1984, the recording that amp was already starting to fade the sound a little bit on it. And I wonder if that's why it was so much.
Well, I know. I mean, I know that when they went to South America, they didn't use they didn't
Yeah,
use like
he
the
didn't bring
real
that. You're
gear.
right. He didn't bring his head. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so he didn't bring any like of the good heads. But if you watch that video, it's like it is unreal, and it still sounds great, but it's unreal how clean that guitar is. And I'm like, whoa,
I
and like I mean, that's Ed. He'll make
that's
anything work.
that's an excellent point because I feel like the earlier Eddie like that when when he had to do the things he had to do with the variac and stuff like that just to try to get that
Yeah,
sustain out of it. That's what we were all looking for. Not even distortion. Distortion
yeah.
is almost like a byproduct of our search for sustain. That's how I look at it. The
You're right
distortion
about
is
that because I remember for years I used to talk. For years, like me and my friends used to talk about, we need more gain, we need more gain. Then I realized that it's not gain that I want; it's sustain.
sustain, baby. You
Yes,
got it. Yeah. So I
yes.
think that, like I said, distortion is a byproduct of our search for sustain. And the same with Eddie. And I think what the great part of that, like you're saying, that was answer so clean. That's when his fingers. I mean, he had those slamming those fingers. He had to squeeze those squeals and that tone out of that, and you could really hear it on those
He was making
on
it
those
work.
South
Yeah.
America era. Yeah, it
But,
was like
watch those videos and listen to how clean that. I mean, it's not like acoustic clean, but there is very little gain on that guitar.
even at the US Festival, there's not a ton of gain on that. I
Yeah,
mean, he's like squeeze working it to try to get it
yeah,
to sound like that too. So,
yeah.
but
And,
it's just
and again, that's back in the day. Like my friends and we talk about how like when I first joined my first band in like 1990, I borrowed my buddy's half stack. He had a VTM 120 right head and and a half stack cab, like a 412. So I threw it in my car. I went to my audition, ended up getting the gig, and then now I'm like in the predicament of having to get gear. And back then, this is my
Hmm.
point with Eddie. Back then, like there was like Marshall, Fender, maybe Mesa, but like and that was maybe and Peavy, and that was really it. Like when you went to a music store, that was really it.
Hmm.
You know,
you didn't even
It
see
was-
stuff like Laney's or anything like that. You never really saw them or any
no,
Laney's or High Watts or anything like that. It
no.
was basically Marshalls around here, and like you said, PVs and Marshalls, and
Yeah, way before all these like modded Marshalls like Friedman and Splon and stuff like that, And I ended up getting, and I don't think I told this story before, where there was this famous guitar store around here in New Haven called Brian Guitars. Now there's a Brian's Guitars in the state now, but it's completely different. But back then, it was like 1980. You'd walk in there. This guy had gear for days: Charvels, Kramers, Les Pauls, right? All these great amps. So I walk in there. I'm excited. I got this new gig, right? And I'm like, okay, I got to get a half stack because everybody else, like there was another guitar player, so he had a half stack, and he was my best friend, and he had a half stack. And let me backtrack. Like this was my best friend's band, and when I was in college, I used to come home and go to their gigs, and I wanted to be in this band so bad, right? But I was in college, right? And then I came home, and something happened. They had 3 guitar players. There's some video somewhere of us doing There's some video on YouTube of my very first gig, which is incredible. I mean, to have. And so there was 3 guitar players, and they each had half stacks. So I don't really at this point I don't know a lot about gear, So I'm like, need a half stack. So I went to this place and walked in. This place when I was a kid was like Mecca, right? Just the best gear, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm talking to one of the guys. I'm like, yeah, I need some kind of like amplification. I need a half stack, blah blah blah. So they hooked me up to this JCM 800, right? And I'm playing it. Oh man, it sounded so good, right? Like I could play anything. It sounded so good. And I'm like, F it, I'll take it. So I bought the head and I bought the cab. And now I have it in my car. I'm like, let me take it over to my buddy's house, right? To my best friend whose band they rehearse at his parents' house. So I brought it over there. I'm like, dude, man, check out this half stack I got, JCM 800. He was running something else. Forget. And I bring it in and I set it up and turn it on, right? And I'm trying to play, and it's like, it sounds completely different. What happened to me being so freaking amazing? right? Then I realized that they had me going through this rack of like compressors and delays and reverbs, right? And that's not, I didn't buy that rack. I just like, you know what I mean? And I was like, I get it. So that was a really important lesson. I'm like, got to figure out,
Yeah.
But yeah, back then, like with Eddie, he had to make stuff work. Hang on one second. My dog's annoying.
Yeah.
Hang on.
It's just amazing that his that as time went on, Eddie kind of, adopted those high gain amps, and because they're just so much easier to play, you know what I mean? It's like we can all say it, even though they're like kind of, the sound on them is fuzzy sometimes out of there. I love turning on these high gain amps and just keeping it at like 1, the sound, because it's so fuzzy and it's just easy to play and you get a ton of sustain and it's great. But and he opted for that, and you know what? And hey, listen, all we need to know is that look at his amps. Who's using his amps? They're really not country guys or regular rock guys. It's these serious metalhead guys that are using they're big into those guys use diesels and all these. They're using EVH amps for that heavy duty metal stuff too. So that saturated high gain crazy stuff. So that's the audience for them. And I guess that's you always said his tastes keep changing, and that's where they were at the end, So
Yeah. But I mean, there's something to be, and so I had this JCM 800, and I ended up, and I was just running it straight in. I didn't really know about like boost pedals, and I wish I knew then what I know now. But it didn't even have an effects loop. There didn't even have an effects loop.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? So I made that work for a couple of years, and then one night we were playing this gig. I'll never forget it. And my band at the time wasn't the same band. It was I joined some other band, and we were doing at that point. This is like this is about like 92, and we were doing just like your basic rock and roll stuff, and there was another guitar player, my buddy Jimmy, and he showed up one day. We were supposed to meet. Back then, you didn't have Waze or GPS, so when you were going to go to a gig, you're like, how the hell do I get there? One guy knew, so we're like, okay, we'll just follow this guy. So we met in this parking lot, and he pulls up, and I'll never forget it. In his trunk was just released 5150, right? The head. I'm like, whoa, when'd you get that? He goes, oh man, I got this, 2 days ago. And he had, and then Conch, you're like this. He had a 5150 head, and as a guitar, he used to play like a Charvel, like Model 4 or something like that, right? He had a Washburn N2. He bought an N2, and yeah, he fired up that 5150, and I was like, I got to get one too. So then excuse me, I went a couple of days later and went and got one myself from the same place,
Yeah.
But
I did too. I still have it. So there it is.
there you go. Yeah, I remember. Yes, I remember when I saw it over at your house. Yeah.
Yeah. And it needs to be retubed. I haven't turned it on in a long time, but it's but yeah, that was like, when that thing was great, man. When I first turned that on, I was like, oh, this thing is amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Speaking of that, should we talk about Conx's gig? Let's talk about Conx's gig.
Well, Alan saying Kane Brown, Keith Urban sideman, and there's that other country guy that uses 5150 heads, and Taylor Swift's guitar player, but predominantly metalheads use it. You're not seeing country guys using them like the metalhead guys are, the 5153s. No way. Taylor Swift guy uses it because he's a huge Eddie freak. There's another country guy, is it Jason Aldean? His guitar player, I think, has 5150 amps on there. And and Keith Urban's and Kane Brown, as Alan pointed out there. But it's not like the metalheads are really, I think that's what's, the biggest users of the 5150 amps are definitely the metalheads. You know what I mean? Because the gain it's out of control. I mean, that stealth 5150 stealth, it's barely usable, that red channel at all. You know, I
ran 5150s I ran 5153s for years. I never played the red channel.
No, on that white one there, the 50 watt, the blue channel is great on that. I never go on the red channel. You can't. It's just too noisy. And I don't know how. I mean, when Chris Gill did the article on the, he was up at Woodstock, this Bethel Woods they call it now up there. He did the rundown of the rig rundown, and Eddie in the effects loop has an MXR Smart Gate in there, but I don't get it how that, because I have a Smart Gate, I have the same one, and that red channel is still as noisy as can be. I don't know what else he's doing. They claim that he wasn't doing anything, but I don't know. I don't know how you keep that thing so.
I like those heads. I do have one problem with those heads, and why I kind of stopped playing them live is like there isn't a master global volume, right? So like I'd be at a show and like I'd be playing something, and my guys would be like, oh, turn up a little bit or turn down a little bit, and I would have to try to match the clean channel and the blue channel again. I'm doing like another sound check again. You know what I mean? Where's the global? There should be like a global knob in the back where, I just need to turn all my stuff up like one or turn it down one. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
you just get to be a pain in the butt trying to match those channels,
And Jimmy, anyway. and then came.
Yes, that solved all my problems. Oh, how I love thee.
Yes, now you can segue into the
now we can segue. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're familiar with what we've put up on the channel over the last couple of weeks, there's a video of Jimmy and John and Jimmy's band playing, and on both John's and Jimmy's Facebook pages. I'll include the links to this video if you aren't already friends with them on Facebook, on this video if you're watching a replay. So Jimmy, give us an intro and a rundown on the gig, and then you guys can have a conversation and keep us up to date and informed with what happened.
Well, a while back, Conks texted me and he's like, yo, man, I've got an idea for like these, like 78 replica little guitars. I'm like, huh? He goes, yeah, like a little guitar, but we're going to stripe it up like a 78. I'm like, oh man, that'd be killer. And he kind of already had one done in like at least partly where I saw the stripes and stuff. I was like, whoa, man, that's cool. He's like, yeah, dude, get this thing. I don't know. It was like, it was like $150. It was like a Squier. It was a Squier guitar. And we I sent it over to John, and it has like it had a swimming pool route, right? Is that how?
Yeah,
right.
That's why I initially said, oh, Frankenstein would be so cool to do with this. Like Eddie had a Frankenstein, I think on 2007, 2008, like 3/4 size. Yeah. And I said, oh, that would be awesome. But then I had one of them with the rosewood fingerboard, and I popped off the pickups and the pick guard, and it was the swimming pool route, the giant. I was like, oh, forget it. We can't do a Frankenstein. But I go, okay. Oh, we can do a 78. So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. So long story short, I sent it to him, and he ended up. This is it right here. He ended up making two of them, one for me, one for him, where it's like the 78, and it's got like here's the headstock and stuff, and it's a playable guitar, considering wow. Yeah. And I've got it tuned. The idea was that since my band was playing really close to John's house, I'm like, Conks, man, come up and play a song. And that kind of started that whole thing where we're going to do little guitars. Now, the problem is that you can't really play Van Halen with two guitars. It just doesn't work. I've tried it with other bands I've been in. Two guitars, it doesn't really work. So John was like, hey man, I got an idea for what you can do. Now, if you watch the video, Conks is killing it, 100% of the time. I'm just playing. I really play like 3 notes twice, right? But I'm playing a little slide. He was like, dude, you got to do that slide part in little guitars. I'm like, slide part? There's slide. And then so I went to Conks' house and to pick up the guitar like a week before. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like this slide and little guitars? And it's like and he's right. There's like this slide thing during the solo. Right? And I'm like, oh yeah. Anyway, it's 3 notes, really, right?
I call that the part where it sounds like the whales mating.
Yeah, it's whales. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So so I was over at his house and we kind of like rehearsed it. Anyway, so fast forward to the day of the show. We both show up. We set up both of our Kempers next to each other. Oh yeah. That's the slide that I use.
There's a slide. That
Oh my God, a whole saw. Whole saw.
I go, Jimmy, I don't have a slide. I go, but here, watch. I go, here, you try it. So this is how we put it together that day.
That's so true, man. That's yep. That's the slide, right?
Yeah. A few band-aids later.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Fine, right?
I jabbed myself a couple of times, but yeah, we showed up to
Thanks,
the
Boner.
gig, and we set up the Kempers and stuff, and we did a little sound check. We had some problems with the sound check girl, but all right, the sound guy was a girl. I'll leave that alone.
It was pretty cool though because she was using her like iPad to do the sound, which is pretty
yes,
high tech.
Yeah. So anyway, we got everything dialed in. We bring Conks up. Like the video says it all. First of all, it was cool having like 2 Kempers. We had 2 Kempers up there. We had 2 little guitars up there. We had 3 H9s up there. Yep. Oh, there you go. Yep, that was the rig.
Hold on, bro.
Conks is the one with the white cab. I got the black cab there. Yeah. And if you watch that video, man, Conks' sound sounds real good. And I was excited to have him up there. He completely killed it. I mean, the video speaks for itself. And we're planning on doing next time we're there. We're planning on doing something else. Thankfully, my singer and I were driving there, and it was on a Saturday, and we're driving down like the Merritt trying to get to Pleasantville, and my singer is like, and this is our first like out of state gig ever, right? And we're driving down there, and my singer is like, hey, you think anybody's showing up tonight? I go, look, dude, we have to try this. Okay, we have to try getting out of this state and doing some stuff. And if it's a good night, great. If it's a bad night, that's great too. I mean, we just don't play there again. I try to have this mentality where we don't worry about stuff like that. Like, we're not fighting cancer. We're just playing in a band. So if people want to show up, great. If they don't want to show up, then that's fine too. I don't pressure anybody to come see me, but we do advertise and all that. So we showed up. It was a really good night. A good crowd. Ideally, we probably made the most money we've ever made ever playing because of the cut that we got. So that was good. The place liked it. So anyway, Conks and I are planning on doing, and when we get back into playing there again, we're kind of debating on doing something else. I don't know what, but we'll figure it out, right, Conks?
Figure something with 2 guitars that we could work 2 guitars into.
Yeah. But yeah, I was happy to have John up there playing and stuff. Like I say, the video speaks for itself. The dude, absolutely killed it. And
it's a great place, isn't it? It's a really cool.
Great place. It's
Lucy's garage. Yeah.
We ran into some of our friends from EVH Con. Remember, we ran into those 2 guys, right?
Yeah. It was pouring rain, and you had to come in like a side door, and then the side door is where they.
Oh yeah, it was pouring.
Yeah, there's like a game room there and stuff like that on the side. And we walk in and there was VH Con guys, EVHCon guys there, so it was kind of like that was kind of a surprise.
Mhm.
That was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool place. It's called Lucy's Garage, and they have all over the wall. They have like license plates from cars, or they have like power tools like mounted on the wall, like drills, like screwed into the wall, all kinds of
Yeah.
power to saws, sawzalls, all kinds of stuff all over the walls of this place. It's like it's really done up pretty, really, really
It's really
cool.
nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
And that town,
And
Pleasantville, is like they. It's a great little town. They, we're north of New York City, the suburbs, but it's like they have a thing called the Pleasantville Music Festival every year, and they get like big national acts there in this like town. They have like Living Color's been there. Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze is there almost every year. This
Wow.
year they might be Giants or headlining it, and I mean, there's big notable people there that they're there every year. So they embrace music, live music. They love it. They have it every year there, and this place does too. This is right in the middle of town. Pleasantville, it's a really nice, cool town. So
yeah, considering that it was pouring, it was we had a good crowd and it was fun.
Yeah.
Everybody had a good time. Talked to some people, and after the show and stuff, it was just my general rule of thumb is that if a place wants you back, then it's a success. You know what I mean? So it was good.
They told you they wanted you back right there that night. They said,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah,
So-
there's the two 78s. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions for you guys. So both of you were using your campers. So you turned up to the gig, you set up, you did your sound check. Did you have to make any adjustments to your favorite settings on your?
That's the point, because Conks brought up this thing. Like, so we set up, we sound checked, and then he was worried that if he like turned off his Kemper, which we didn't do, right? But you were concerned that if you turned off your Kemper, if it would come back up to the same volume. Right?
Jimmy knows how to mess with Kempers. I just know how to push buttons to get the sound I like. I don't mess with that thing. I don't have the patience, or I need to learn how to do it. I just know what ones I like. I just turn the profile on if I like, and I just go from there. But I was like, well, if we do this, when I come back, am I gonna have to reset the level for the volume when I turn it off? But we didn't. But I don't, Jimmy, you use your profile that you always use, your main one, like for that. I used a Top Jimmy profile. It's called Diver Down. And, and that's what I use for that, the Diver Down profile. But the secret sauce is, I showed you in the picture there, Jimmy's got 2 Eventide H9s in his rig. And that's all I brought with me was one of them in my rig. I didn't bring any other effects at all. And, but the key is the Eventide. I worked on a preset for it in there. I call it Little H9, and so I got the settings on there for it, and you use your phone to set it up. And so that's what I use for it, because it sounded pretty good. Andrew, you have a video on your channel of when I first did that thing on the little guitar, the video. I'm pretty sure it's still up there, but it sounded pretty good. I thought that sound there too. And
so can do me a favor, John. Put your setting. Show your settings again.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
now, is this something that you've tweaked yourself
Absolutely,
to find all those settings? That's not something
Alan
that's been
Garber,
supplied.
Yeah, Alan Garber had the he took the Women in Love setting that's built into the preset, and I believe he turned off the delays on it, and he brought the mix in because it was in mono. He brought the mix down, and he approximated that sound, that chorusy kind of warble to that. So I use that kind of as a starting point, but unlike him, I always hear a delay, and Eddie always said that he uses delay as reverb. He always would say that. And I kind of figured it out there. It's like, man, it's a tight delay. Like I'm talking 30 milliseconds I was using. That's how tight it is. And I hear that from Diver Down all the way up to like OU812. You can hear it if you listen.
That's exactly how I have mine set. I've got 2 H9s, and one I have. They both run this patch called oh god, what's it called? But it's Slap. it's called slap, and
Yeah.
it's a slap back delay. But when you play, you don't hear a delay,
Right.
but you feel the wideness of the note. So like when I was running a regular amp, I would need like some reverb on it a little bit just to give it some sauce. But I don't run any reverb anymore because that's exactly what he was saying. Where if you have this like really short delay, it gives you it's like it gives you like that space, that reverb without any like a reverb will have a decay, or the delay will have a decay. There's no decay when you
Yeah.
play these notes, but you just feel it. It gives it a wider thing. Anyway, so that was, so we both came across the same idea, differently.
Yeah. So if you look at, you can look at the delay settings on it. It's 31 milliseconds I did on both the A and B there. And it's got the little
Okay.
the detune on it for like the warble. I have 1.004 on that one, and then the A side I just have 1.00. I don't even know why.
Okay.
I should probably had them both at 1, but I didn't. But to me, that that delay part, it really makes a difference, because after that I did a Drop Dead Legs sound, and that's, I think that one sounds great too, and it's the same exact 30 millisecond delay setting for Drop Dead Legs, and it sounds like, I on that I also used I needed that, because that first chord on Drop Dead Legs at A5, it has got that little growl to it. It's clean because it's that 1984 tone. I used the 1984 profile in the Kemper, but it still didn't have that little growl to it. I tried to bring up the gain a little, but it didn't work. But I have one of those Carl Martin Panama pedals, and it's supposed to be, it's a plexi kind of pedal that makes it sound like a plexi, and it's actually pretty cool. If you guys go on YouTube and see it, if you want to get that plexi sound, it's called the Panama Carl Martin. It's like a boutique pedal. It's a British pedal, I guess. So I threw that, I plugged into that first, and then I went into the Kemper, but I backed some of the gain off. I just used the 1984 patch for that. But I cranked up a little bit of more gain in that pedal, and I was able to approximate that little growl at the beginning of it. And that with the H9, with that 30 millisecond delay on either side, the two delays, it's real close to Drop Dead Legs. It sounds really good. So highly recommend that.
John and Jimmy, when you guys are making adjustments to your patches on your Kemper, are you doing it directly on the Kemper itself, or are you going through your computer program? Is it Bluetoothed or cabled for you to make those fine adjustments?
There's a thing called Rig Manager, and you connect. There's a USB out in the back of the Kemper, and you connect it to your computer, and you can see it that way. Now, our buddy Les Paul Gibson uses that a lot. I just started using that. The thing with me and these Kempers is that I do very little editing. Like
Okay.
Conk said, you'll get these profiles for, like, again, I don't want to start talking about this, but it's one of my favorite subjects, so I'll continue.
Yeah, that's
Right?
what we do. That's what
But,
we
like,
do here.
you don't have I do like very little editing.
Yeah.
You get these profiles, you load them in, very easy, whether it's a USB thing or you can just click and drag them using
Yep.
Rig Manager, and you just kind of like, like, I just treat it like an amp. I don't go into like the different levels of editing, or like adjusting, right? I'll load in a profile. If I like it, I'll usually 99% of the time I'll love it from the get-go, and I won't touch a thing. Other times I'm like, oh, you know what? Okay, for example, I just loaded this one up. We're gonna start doing finish what you started, so I need a bit of a cleaner sound. So I loaded in a profile of like a plexi that sounded really good on it, right? And it was too gainy, so I turned down the gain a little bit. That's really it, right? I treat the Kemper like it's a real amp. I don't go different.
Okay.
I mean, you do have to do that to do like different routings and stuff. Like I showed Conks this thing yesterday where there's this thing called morphing, and it'll do like special things. So you do have to go into the menu for that. But I don't go into the menus of like really, going into the guts of it like I would. I had an Axe-Fx 3, Axe-Fx 2, I mean, and that took over my life and stuff with all the editing and stuff. But this, I load in the profile. I treat it like a real amp. If I want to bring up the gain a little bit, bring down the gain a little bit, maybe add some treble. Those four knobs in the middle of the Kemper are, basically, presence, treble, bass, whatever. And it's like a real amp. So you just use those four and kind of EQ it, and that's it.
As Jimmy always says, I like the way he said it. It's like 95% a real amp. That's not what he says. It's 95%. Yeah. It's not a real amp, but it's 90. It's close. And all you need to know is, like, the proof is in the pudding. Everybody knows our friend Simon Hosford. You go on YouTube, and he's probably has 10 zillion views now on the Van Halen one, and he used the Kemper for that Van Halen one. I think he used the Top Jimmy profiles too, Simon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think he tweaked them much at all. I don't know if he did it all. You know what I mean? And listen to how amazing
these profiles are really inexpensive, right? Yeah. You'll spend like these Top Jimmy ones. They cost like $30, and they'll send you like 80 of them. Right.
So just let me ask a couple of questions, guys. So you load these profiles in, and then on your Kemper you've got a mid, you've got a treble, and you've got a bass. So you can adjust the patch that you've loaded in. You can adjust the mid to your ear.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So like you do an amp.
Yeah,
okay.
It's exactly like an amp. Yeah. And the thing is that you got to keep in mind, these profiles aren't made. These profiles are not made like on somebody's computer. They connect a real amp to it, and it profiles a real amp. It's not modeling. You know what I mean? But here you go. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you look down here, you'll see there's a bass, a mid, and a treble. Am I doing it? Looking at it right? Hold on. Yeah, hold on.
I got to get one.
It's loading up. But you'll see, like, the effect stuff is at the top right here. Delay, reverb here, effects, EQ, amplifier cabinet, stomp boxes here. If you want to add them in, you can plug those in, right, Jimmy? You can do all that.
Yes.
And then
see what it is if you look at that faceplate, those four buttons all the way to the left are like stomp boxes in front of the amp. Then in the middle, you've got, right there, those four, right? Then where Conks is pointing over there where it says amplifier, move your hand, Conks, a little bit to the, there you go, right there where it says amplifier, right? That's the amp. The amp, that's the profile that you're using. You can turn the cabinet on and off. For me, because I run a real cab, I turn the cabinet off because it's an IR, basically, right? And then those other four buttons next to it, those are effects that you want in the loop, let's say, right? Like delays or reverbs. Now you can put those all in the front if you want to, but ideally those go in the loop, right? But yeah, you load these profiles in, and like I said, they're not just made out of like thin air. They connect the Kemper to a real amp, and it profiles it, right? And then you load those in, and you can adjust the gain. See the gain with those LEDs, those circular LEDs. Yeah, you can bring the gain up. You can bring the gain down. You treat it like an amp, like like a regular Marshall will have, stuff like that, And and you can go into the guts of it, but I kind of don't. I kind of don't. And Greg Roberts here in the chat was asking if the environment, affects the tone at all. I've had, with real amps, I spoke about this before, and I feel like I'm giving a seminar on this Kemper, and I don't want to do that. But with like real amps, I had problems, playing them live because, like, you're right. When you bring it you can bring it into the same room, night after night, and it'll sound different. Whereas, like, I remember every time I turn on this Kemper, I'm like, there's my sound. There it is.
Okay, straight away.
Yeah, and you'll see bass, mid, treble, and presence right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rig volume, master volume. And then over here you have noise gate, and you have gain.
Okay.
Stomp boxes, amp, EQ cabinet, and then you got delay, reverb, stuff like that. Over here you can dial your delay. I don't know if you see that over here. Delay and reverbs in there too. like I said, Jimmy's the master of this stuff, but you can browse through all your profiles that I have. Like Jimmy gave me a million. Him and Les Paul gave me a million profiles. So they're all, I mean, in here. Like Jimmy said, for $30, you get all these things here. This is like a Mesa Boogie Stiletto. I mean, I got Friedman BE 412, EVH 5153. I mean, there's just like tons of them. You can pick which one you like. Anything you want. Like I'm big. I love Vox AC30s. So these guys like Les and Jimmy just totally drowned me in like a million Vox AC30 like profiles, and they're amazing.
So guys, so you have to hook that up to a cab. So it's either in XLR or THR outlets on the back there.
You don't have to. No, you can run that direct to a PA, right? Throw an IR
straight out to a PA.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can run it straight up to PA. Now I've done that. I don't like that. I like the feel of a cab behind me. I like my main monitor being a real cab.
Okay.
Now, and you can do that. That's why I turn the cabinet button off. Okay, because it turns off the IR that's in there for the patch.
Okay.
And it just uses my real cab. Now, the difference when you turn that button on and off is it's almost like an EQ, really. You know,
Okay.
but I turn it off just so I can hear like my real cab. But the difference of having it, like if you have it on by mistake, it's not going to be like, you're going to think something's wrong. You know, it's not like that. But yeah, I run a real cab. Like I run it like it's a real amp. Now, in the past, I've had it where they ran a line out from the back of my Kemper with an IR to the front of house, and so the people are hearing, you know, that cab with an IR on it, and I'm hearing my cab, you know.
Okay.
But sometimes I had some problems with that. Just like some rooms there would be like this slight crackle after you stop playing that I didn't like. And like, you know, it wasn't like constantly like that. Just this one room that I was playing, and maybe it was wires or something. But I ended up just right now. They ideally they'll just mic up my cab, or I'll run. I have a DI box that I run from the back of my Kemper, and they connect an XLR to the front of house, right?
Okay.
But you can connect that to your DAW, and you won't even need a cab. Just throw on an IR there, you know. But
headphones, whack it into headphones.
Oh yeah. You can play with headphones.
Jack right in the front. And Jimmy's got the one. He's got a rack mounted one. The regular one that looks like a toaster, the top shape of it, the hardware. And you can get it with the power amp built in or not built in. I have the one that doesn't have a power amp built in. If you looked over there, you can see underneath it, I have a power amp right underneath it. Jimmy's has the power amp. It's the same size too, Jimmy. Yours is this, but yours has the power amp built in it. Yeah. Or you can get the toaster, they call it. And the most amazing thing that blows me away with it, and I know Jimmy obviously too, is that this thing's been out since like 2011 or 12, maybe I think it was. And there's been no change to the hardware since. Whereas every other company tries to screw you. I mean, they're a German company, these guys, and they're not out to screw you because they would have had, you know, Kemper
There's a
Mark
new head rush out.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Mark II they would have. But these guys aren't like that. And they just announced basically the other day that, the Kemper 2 is coming. But guess what? It's just a firmware update. That's they're like, that's the Kemper 2. It's the firmware upgrade for that piece of equipment. So Jimmy and I always say, and Les, we always say, when you get it right the first time, you don't need to do that. And these guys, I feel that these guys got it right. That thing it's incredible. It's
wow.
So cool. I'm glad I got it. But Jimmy and Les totally were hounding me for like a year. You got to get a Kemper. You got to get a Kemper every day. You got to get a Kemper. So
they loved it at EVH Con. Those guys love the Kemper too. So
yeah.
And
it's just amazing.
Were you the only one there with the Kemper?
Yeah.
Were you the only one at EVH Con with the Kemper?
Yeah, I was the first guy around this circle that got a Kemper, and I got it because I had an Axe-Fx, and my buddy and I, we bought my buddies. They're huge like tube head guys like I was. They all had splons like I did. And one day I was like, oh man, I'm gonna tell these guys that I want to get an Axe FX. And I'm like, so guys, I was thinking about getting an Axe FX. And my buddy Dave was like, I want one too, man. I could get out of here. Long story short, we both got Axe FXs, man. We talk about this still to this day. We really wanted it to work.
Just didn't work.
You're stuck with what's in there. That's the beauty of this Kemper. If you don't like a profile,
You get rid of it.
you can get rid of it and go find one that you like. There's free ones on this Rig Exchange. There's
So
free
FX,
ones.
so the FX, you only got to use what they've got.
Huh?
For the FX, for the XFX, you can only use what's in there.
Yes.
Ah.
You can't load anything into the Axe FX. And let me tell you, I had one. And look, there might be people on here that have Axe FXs, and it works for them. It didn't work for me, right? Because
Ah.
for me, I would okay. So I'm going through the thing, and I'm like, okay, they had like a model for a Friedman, they had a model for a Splon. This is really my experience. Okay, so they had a model for a Friedman, they had a model for a Splon, they had a model for, I don't know, name another like modded thing. They had a model for a Cameron. I'm like, oh, cool, man. I'm
Right.
telling you, we really wanted this to work. Now, so I'm like, let me try this Friedman BE 100 model. Again, it's a model.
Sure.
It's somebody's like programming.
Yeah.
Right. So I tried the Friedman. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me try the Splon. Oh, well, sounds like exactly like the Friedman. Let me try the Cameron. Okay, well, that a little bit more game, but this sounds exactly like it. Just and the thing was that my buddy who had one at the time too, we would exchange presets, right? He's a
Sure.
big Nuno guy, and he would do this like Nuno patch. He's like, dude, here, check out this Nuno patch, right? And I get it, and I'd play it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I'd come downstairs the next day, wanting to try it out again because I liked it last night. I'm like, what the hell happened to this? It just sounded completely different. And I played like live. I played maybe 5 or 6 gigs with it. I tried to get it to work, and then my buddies were like, "Dude, it's just not working." They weren't being like dicks. They were it's not working. And I'm like, I know. And one time I was at rehearsal with this Axe FX, and I never understood what it meant when people were like not being able to cut through. I'm like, if you can't cut through, turn the F up. That was always
Yeah.
my mentality, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, but I was blaring at rehearsal, and I couldn't hear myself. And that's when I was like, I was driving home, and I texted my friends. I'm like, I got to get rid of this. So then I went back to like real amps. That's when I went back to like the 5153s, and then I kind of had like the bug to try the Kemper, and that was like 4 years ago. I've been running it ever since.
And
Wow.
the rest, and this is all you need to know. Anybody who's like questions it, this look.
Hold on, bro. Let me present that.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, here we go.
And tell me that this guy's not like a tone guy that cares about his tone. It's official. Mark Knopfler uses Kemper on tour. I mean, so
Okay.
and
Okay.
you know he's a tone junkie. So if he trusts a Kemper, then if it's good enough for Mark Knopfler, it's good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this, guys. And one other thing here. Look at this. They're starting to come down a little bit in price too. Look at that.
Oh, I need one.
Look at that. The toaster there, $449 used at
I think that's the guitar. I think that's just the
Cabinet?
cabinet. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's just the
I think it
cabinet.
says- I think
But-
yeah, I think
But you can. I got mine used, and you know what?
Yeah.
It was from like a church. Like the churches down south in the United States. They have these big, arenas that they do, and they have full bands every Sunday like that. Well, apparently they trade in their gear every couple of years, and there's a website like Church Gear. Google it, and I saw this Kemper on it, and I got this I think for $1,200 or something like that. And what are
So
they
you've
like?
got a holy Kemper. Wow.
I got a Holy Kemper, and it came with like some like blackface profiles already in it. I guess in the church they like the blackface sound, you know.
Yeah.
So they
I like the Fender.
yeah, but I think I paid $1,200 for it, and it was like brand new. It still had the plastic over it, you know. So
And,
look
and like I
around.
said, man, watch that video of Conks playing, little guitars. It sounds great.
Yeah,
It sounds great.
the video on your channel is like it's a better quality one. It was recorded better, but you'll hear it. But I should say that I give props out to Eventide H9 too, and that I did have hooked up with the Bluetooth and the H9 app, and you can actually adjust your settings on there on the fly. You know, you have all your algorithms and stuff like that. You want the 949 or the micro pitch for the later like Van Halen, or the 949 for, the 1984 stuff or whatever like that. You can go in there and adjust it right on here on the app, and then adjust it on the pedal for you. So
Remarkable.
so I didn't even tell Jimmy, but before we played little guitars, I wasn't sure if the because I was like complaining that the guitar wasn't loud enough in the sound that night. I said that to you. You got to be up. You got to be up a little more. You know what I mean? So I figured, well, when we went up to play that, I hit this thing, and I pushed up the volume a little bit and the mix in here, so it would make it just.
Oh yeah, nice, man. Good.
It would cut through just in case that
Good,
it
man.
did that, and it worked. But you can adjust it all on your phone on the app, which is awesome. And Eventide makes just amazing stuff. You know what I mean? Especially if you love Van Halen, it's like try to get an H9 or something like that. Even more than the micro pitch. I'm not sure that I think the micro pitch just does micro pitch kind of, I guess, really. But you got the algorithms in this for the 949 and stuff like
the
that.
difference in price isn't that. I mean, like the micro pitch isn't that cheap. Like
No.
I think it's like a $300 difference between the micro pitch and the H9, where you can do 30,000 more things.
Yeah,
You know what I
and
mean?
I'm talking high quality too. It's
Yeah.
like it's not.
Yeah. Well, I love. I have two H9s. I love them. One I have set just for slap, and the other one is controlled from the MIDI of my Kemper. So when I switch patches, it switches my H9 to like pitch shifting or delay or whatever. Yeah, does it automatically.
I had a picture earlier. Here it is. Yeah, you can see there's three H9s right there.
Yeah, three H9s. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy's got two of them over there on the one side, and I had the one on the other side.
Yeah.
But it's a great piece of gear, and if you can now they stopped like they had the core model, I guess, which was just the basic model, and you go in the store and buy their algorithms for the 949 for whatever you want, the the H3000, and then they decided kind of to phase out the H9, and they have this new one that was it the H990 H90 or something like that, but it's also like $1,000. But you can do multiple effects at one time. I believe in that one. So it is great, but it's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
The negative of the H9 is you can really only run one effect at a time. But for what we're using it for, listen, I'm using it for the micro pitch or whatever, the detune type of effect. But it's got great delays in there. You can do some presets and stuff like that too for that, and just switch presets. But so the difference is you can pick one of these up now probably for $300 with a lot of the stuff already loaded in, because they gave you a few month window, said, hey, you're going to run out of time. So each of these algorithms is like $20. So you could buy all of them. We'll sell it to you for like $150 or whatever it was. We'll give you everything. It'll be completely loaded. It'll turn it into an H9 Max.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just, buy whatever you want. So boutique wise. So I just picked what I would want, what I know I was going to use, and I put them in there. But you could probably get them now on, eBay or whatever, pretty well loaded up with different algorithms like that. But if you want that Van Halen type of stuff, save your money.
100%.
The little pedals are cool. Like the Moore one is cool. A $45 one. It's cool. I used to love the PS6. I still do that. The Boss PS6. That's a great little pedal. But this is big time. If you love that Van Halen sound, you get that. It's like, that's it. We can finally, after all these years, you can actually achieve that sound, that you want. If you want that Foreign Lawful Carnal Knowledge or Balance era, you can nail it now. It's it's there. It's easy to get now, where it was out of range before because of the price of the rack mounted, 949 or H3000. You're talking a couple grand for those things. And now it's, in a $300 pedal, you can get it. And it sounds pretty damn close. So.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, highly recommended, all that stuff. And, these people make these profiles for the Kemper. One guy is Top Jimmy, and he's the ones that we were talking about tonight, and that Simon used when he did the Van Halen 1, the Top Jimmy profiles. So Top Jimmy just about a month ago, Jimmy, was it, put a video out on YouTube of a 68 Plexi with a Variac, and he's playing some Van Halen stuff on it, and he's profiling that amp with the Variac, and he's going to release a whole new bunch of profiles. We're still waiting. I don't know I don't know if he's given a date for the release.
Yeah, I've checked on that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
So he's going to do a whole slew of new profiles for the Van Halen sounds. And if you go on YouTube and you type in Top Jimmy, Top Jimi, and you'll find the most recent video, and you'll see the 68 Plexi, and he's playing it in there, and he's going to take that into a studio, and I guess he's probably done it by now, and profile that amp and release a whole new set of Van Halen Variac 68 Plexi profiles. So, I mean, and the video, you hear him playing, it sounds incredible. So I can't wait for the profiles,
No question.
So,
these guys know what they're doing. They know how to I've never tried profiling anything. But these guys, they know what they're doing, and there's like a certain select group that I kind of follow, like Top Jimmy or Tone Junkie, and we know that these guys do great profiling, and you're going to get quality stuff. And again, this stuff is like, I mean, sometimes Tone Junkie runs like this sale. It's like 90% off. You can buy like 3 packs for like $10, and like these packs will be like 3 different amps, and it's like they'll get you like 80 different sounds. Like for, let's say it was an EVH, a 5153, they'll profile every channel. If it's got like a bright switch, they'll profile every channel with that bright switch on. They'll profile every channel with like the depth knob on. You know what I mean? And you get all these profiles for like $30. You load them in, and then you go through the set. Oh, do I like this one? Yeah, I'll keep it. Do I like this one? No. Do I like this one? Yeah, but let me turn down the gain a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's how I treat it. Like I load in this profiles, and I treat it like a real amp. That's it.
Yeah,
really.
It's incredibly easy too, because like they told me, oh, you get a Kemper, we're going to drown you in profiles. And sure enough, Jimmy and Les Paul just like drown me like 1,000 profiles in an email. And it's as simple as plugging a thumb drive into my MacBook, downloading them onto the thumb drive, going over to the front of the Kemper in the USB port, plugging my thumb drive in there, hitting the button to load them, and it just takes them and loads them in there. And it's just like there's tons of them in there. It's incredible to try to go through all of them. It's amazing. So
I'm certainly going to be interested in having this conversation with you guys. I've got to echo what R2R3 is saying there. I got the micro pitch, the Eventide micro pitch, which that's not a cheap pedal. And I remember when I got my 5150 combo about this time last year, I took it into work the day that I picked it up, plugged it in, fiddled around with the settings, and put that micro pitch on. And I got to agree with you, at an analog level, at level 6, 7 on the amp, that was the closest I'd ever got in my search to any of that OU8 F carnal knowledge tone. So I got to back you up there, John. The technology is there, the closest we'll ever get. Now I've got to agree with you though. I'm interested in what the Kemper can do, that extra colouring that it can give. You guys might remember that I said to you once when we first started doing this show together, the three of us, I had that same setup at work, and I went and played it one lunchtime, turned it on. Nothing was changed on the settings, and it sounded bad.
Right.
and I remember you, John, telling me, he said, just switch the amp off, because that's what they...
Walk away.
And walk away. If you want to solve that solution, get a Kemper.
Yeah. Yeah, like Jimmy said, doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's damp or whatever like that, it's going to sound the same no matter what, and he's right.
Wow.
It does. Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
amazing.
I turn it on. Like, sometimes I'll turn it on. Like, I'll be at a gig, and like I'll connect everything, and I'll turn it on, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, this isn't my sound, and it's because like I have a foot controller, and it's because my foot controller is like on a different patch, right? And then I'll go
Okay.
back to my main patch, and I'll fire it up. I'm like, yeah, there it is. It's
Wow.
it's really consistent, and that's what I want. I want something really consistent. Yeah.
Absolutely. But to your point, R2, R3 locking nut, the Eventide micro pitch delay works just fine for you. 100%. Eventide just makes great stuff. It's
Yeah,
just
uh-huh.
amazing that 15 years ago, we'd be paying $3,000 for what you got right now in a $300 pedal. It's just, we're lucky now, that we can actually do all this stuff. It's available for us. And even I use, when I record in Logic, they have an Eventide micro pitch plugin, and I don't even record with it. I add it on when I'm mixing the Eventide. It's actually their plugin too, and it was only like $100, so it was well worth it. It's just, you throw that on vocals, drums, the guitars. It just makes everything sound huge, So,
Mhm.
so you can check that out too. But the only difference is like the what do you call it? H9. It's a little more versatile because you can put different like algorithms in there. So if you want that 1984 sound, or 5150, you can use the 949 algorithm in there. If you want the balance of four muffled cardinal knowledge, you'll get like the H3000 algorithm, which is what you basically have in the pedal, the micro pitch pedal. So they're both great. No, I love them both. Anything Eventide, anything they do is great. So without a doubt, highly recommend all Eventide stuff.
So yeah, just to wrap up, yeah, we had a great show with Conks, and it was great having him there, man. So we got to do it again.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. And if anyone is interested in getting any advice on Kemper, if you're watching on a replay, I'm sure Jimmy and John will be happy to help you along that journey. Clearly, they're disciples and advocates of it. We're not paid. This channel's not paid by Kemper 2, folks. We've got to make that clear. We're just talking about two great guitar players and bands, talking about the advantages of having a great kit. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's something to be said about knowing that when you fire, and like I just connect like 4 cables to it, like 2 cables for the loop, 1 cable, actually 3 cables, two in the back for the loop, and 1 in the front that goes into the input. And every time I fire it up, man, it sounds consistent, and that's there's my sound, and there's something to be said about that, because I used to run real amps, and look, there is nothing cooler than a real head on a real cab. There's nothing sexier, right? Like a Plexi or whatever amp you got, right, on a cab, cool cab, 412. Oh yeah, I love it. But like when you're playing like room to room, there's some nights where your gear is your gear. That's like that's what Andrew was saying. Like, you went in one day, didn't touch anything, and that's what I mean. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've come across that where you're like, I didn't touch anything, and you're worrying about like your gear. Like there's nothing worse when like your gears, like you got to play a full night of Van Halen and you're fighting your gear. You know what I mean? You can't relax.
That's a great point.
And this thing, you fire it up. I've had some times where I've stepped on the wrong button, and my Kemper will, like, it won't freeze, but you can't dial back down to you basically have to turn it off and turn it back to reset it, right? It's user error. It happened to me a couple of gigs ago, and like look, I had to tell the crowd, look, I'm gonna talk to you guys for about 2 minutes here because my Kemper is resetting, man. Just bear with us, right? Because I stepped on the wrong. Sometimes I step on the wrong button wrong 2 buttons, and it doesn't know what to do, right?
Okay.
That's just my fault. But other than that, it's been pretty much bulletproof. I've been playing it for 4 years, and if you know me, I used to go through gear. I used to get amps and guitars, and now I don't really talk about amps anymore. I just use what I use, and I just want it to work, and it
And
does.
and just to reiterate, it's not just for like these Van Halen kind of sounds. You want to sound Brian May
Oh
going
yeah.
in the Vox AC30 profiles, and it's just like it's just an amazing tool for any band that's playing like in clubs, a top 40 band that's doing like all 80s music. They literally can create
Mhm.
profiles for every song and
Mhm.
just match it up to that amp, that whatever they were using on there. And it's just and they're legit, because those AC30s are just like that glassy, chimey sound. I love that stuff. And these guys sent me matchless AC30s. It's just like, it's just incredible. It's so versatile. I bought a little Vox AC10 or something just to mess around with. I haven't turned it on since I got the Kemper, and I'm gonna like sell it because it's like I never turn it on. I just use the Kemper now because it's so real life sounding to the Vox. So
Wow.
can't say enough good things about it. Jimmy's a happy camper. Camper.
Yeah, I'm a happy camper.
A happy camper.
Happy
Thanks,
camper.
guys, for hanging out with us. We'll wind the show up. Can you see the chat, John? Do you want to go through and say goodbye to everybody, if that's okay? And keep in touch with us. Hit the notification button, because Jimmy and I will be back with John in a couple of weeks for another Van Halen show. Hang out with us.
Yeah, definitely. We got Greg Roberts, Jimmy Ray Hawkins. We have Janice Lala, R2, R3 Locking Nut. Let's see. Alan, I don't know if Alan's still in there. Alan was here. Brooks Reed. Let's see. Jerry Leica, the great Jerry, right here. Jerry. Look at this thing. Thank you, Jerry. You're the best. Let's see. Boner Jams. Here he is.
Boner.
Mr. Bucknoff. Jerry, I said. Shout out to Nightbot. Let's see. Grace. Let's see. What else we got here? Diamond D. Some good comments there tonight. Diamond D. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is just an awesome sounding album. If a different kind of truth sounded like that, it would have been magic. I agree, 100%.
Yep.
Let's see. And I think that's everybody. Fruitcake Tony was here. Let's see.
I think I saw Brody in there too.
Who's that?
I think I saw Brody in there.
Oh yeah, Brody was here. Brody left. Yeah, you're right. He was here earlier. I'm getting towards the top there now. Let's see. I think that's pretty much everybody. I think. Let's see. Yep, Brody. Got to Brody. Christopher Live Sawa was here. Let's go Mets. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's everybody right there. Just
all right.
We got a lot of comments, and Tim Thomas was here. I don't want to miss anybody, but let's see. I think that's everybody. Yeah, got it. So definitely. And if you guys want to hear that H9 patch with the Kemper, you can go on this channel here and scroll through the videos, and you'll see the little guitars one with the mini guitar. I recorded it. To the backing track with the patch and the profile from the Kemper. So you can check it out on there.
Cool. And if you're watching on a replay, we'll attach that link, make it easier for you too. But if you're in the chat and you're too lazy to go back and scroll back, give me half an hour and I'll edit it for you. Again, I appreciate you, Jimmy, for your time, for your experience, for your enthusiasm, and coming here and hanging out and talking about the stuff that we love. And you too, John, appreciate it. You guys are fantastic. None of us are experts. We're just fans, ladies and gentlemen, just sharing our passion for Van Halen and for sharing our experiences on how we get those tones. And Jimmy and John obviously have a lot of experience there. So if you have any questions for them, find them on social media, give them a yell on social media, or ask questions here on this video. They'll come back and check it out. They're always happy to pass on any experiences they've got.
Absolutely.
We all love
All
this.
right, Jimmy.
We all love this cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy, you're going to give the last word, bro, and then we're going to cruise.
Okay. My last word. Love this channel. I mean, I say that every time, man. I love this channel. There's a great community here. Had a great time tonight. So thank you. Talking with the Conks and Andrew and stuff. Andrew, what time is it over there now?
Oh, it's early. It's 3:20 p.m. on a Saturday, so it's a good time. It's a good time for me to do a show, and obviously it fits in well with you guys being in the evening over in America. So it works well.
Also wanted to say thanks for everybody dealing with me and my Kemper love. Andrew's right. Like, if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook. It's just Jim Vonvis on Facebook, and you can send me a message or whatever. Happy to help out. And
Brilliant.
if you believe me, man, if you end up getting a Kemper, let me know. I'll send you thousands of profiles. Doesn't matter to me. 100%. Right, Con? I looked at my rig manager, and I have 21,000 profiles.
Holy
and
cow.
I thought it was a lot more. Anyway. So anyway, thanks for allowing us to talk about that stuff. Hopefully it's interesting. We all love Van Halen. We all love this community. So big shout out to you, Andrew, for keeping this thing alive. Thank you. Conks, big shout out to you for just being Conks. Thanks, bro.
I think with the Kemper, I think with the Kemper, from what I'm picking up, it's an easy system in the sense, obviously you got to fork out cash, but it's an easy system for you to get reliable Van Halen tones.
Perfect.
100%.
Perfect description, dude. Perfect. You want to sound like Simon did that night? I mean, not the playing, but you want to get that kind of sound? You get a Kemper, push a couple buttons, and you'll be like, wow, there it is. There's the Running with the Devil.
If I can say one other thing, that's the thing. Like, when I bought the Axe FX, because I saw this guy, some Italian dude. He's on YouTube. He had an Axe FX 2XL, and he had the absolute greatest sound for 5150, the song 5150, where he played along and he dropped out Eddie's guitar. I mean, he dropped out, not the guitar, but he dropped out the remaining instruments, and you just heard his guitar, and it was like, oh my God. So I ended up buying the Axe FX primarily for that. Now, on the Axe FX exchange thing, you could get this guy's presets, right? You could get his preset. I'm like, couldn't wait. My Axe FX came, loaded it up, didn't sound anything like it. Whereas this stuff, the Kemper, when you see somebody like demoing some sound, it's like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't know what the difference is. They're both basically computers. So I don't know what the difference is, why one is more consistent than the other. I don't know. But like it 100% is. You'll see somebody with playing like these Tone Trunket guys. Every time they release a new amp, they'll do like a 20-minute version of them playing something, with it, some rock stuff or whatever. And like when you get the profile, you're like, yeah, this is what it sounds like. Anyway, it's really consistent, and I need to shut up talking about it because I can talk about it all night. I said, Andrew, you get one, man. You're gonna get
profiles.
Yeah,
Oh.
like Conk says, you're gonna get drowned in profiles.
Get
Oh.
a big thumb drive, Andrew.
All right, brother. Okay, we're out of here.
All right, guys. Thank you.